Hey everyone, this is Marcus Lewis, and I want to show that a visual running environment like this can work with any NewPick HTM, and not just the ones that are boxed into a CLA model. I grabbed a recent feedback experiment from newpick.research. Here's how you run it without my changes. I'll edit this video to make it go really fast. So this just ran a series of inputs through an HTM that didn't use feedback, and then it ran them through an HTM that did use feedback. Let's look at that second one from another angle. So here it's running, and over here you get some experiment-specific information. Let's let this finish. You can see we got the same command line output as before, so we still have that. And now we have a better view on what the HTM just did. So because this is a feedback experiment, I think it's soothing to look at some feedback connections. As usual, here are the distal dendrite segments connecting to cells in the previous time step. But now you can see these new apical dendrites reaching out toward the higher layer. These are feedback connections. Now, looking over here, one thing you might notice is that we're not showing any input bits. This layer isn't using a spatial pooler. It's just a temporal memory that gives the input direct access to the columns. So each of these columns corresponds one-to-one with an input bit, sharing the same state, as in whether it's active or inactive. So there's no reason to show the input bits separately. And another part that's noteworthy, if I select an active column in the higher layer, you see that there are no feed-forward synapses. This is because this higher layer doesn't actually exist. It's just a series of SDRs that mimic an actual temporal pooling layer, but is really just a random number generator at the bottom. So this experiment is surgically studying the roles of distal and apical dendrites. We don't spatial pool the inputs. We haven't actually implemented this layer. So really what we have here is a temporal memory and a bunch of duct tape. So to recap, I've shown a couple of new things. This tool can do hierarchy and feedback and apical dendrites. But my bigger point here is that it's practical to have all of this even if you're doing crazy one-off experiments. And that's really what I wanted to show. But I do have one more cosmetic update. Up to this point, this running environment has been known as ComportexVis, as in a visualizer of Comportex. So clearly it has sort of stepped out and become its own thing. Felix and I are now calling this sanity, as in sanity check or sanity test, which for HTM has a couple of meanings. There's the obvious meaning of making sure an HTM isn't doing something ridiculous with all of its parameters and thresholds and so on. But a second meaning is, because this is HTM, we are actually testing for sanity. I just think it's a funny aspiration.